couple weeks ago, I guess the weather we were on a warming trend somewhat, and the fishing was pretty good there. What were you hearing about that?
The fishing was fantastic. We had people coming in and they were catching anywhere from 20 to 30 bass in a day. The fish had started to move up. They were in 5 to 8 foot, mainly on the 45 and 60-degree banks, staging in to go to spawn. And they were catching them on mainly was a square bill, a rattle trap. There were some chatterbait bites and some spinnerbait bites. And we saw the pictures of fish that were 8 and above that were caught. So the fishing was really, really good. They wanted to move, and now this weather has come back in and has stalled that move. So the fish, you'll go out there right now and you'll see a lot of fish suspended, or they'll be starting to sink back down a little bit because of water temperatures back down in the mid 40s. So we call that a false spring type deal. Gets everybody else's hopes up and then dashes them for a little while. But come March, that move will happen and it won't stop then. It'll move on in. The days are getting longer, the water temperatures will get to the right temperatures, and the bass will move into spawn. So one of the mistakes that I hear people talk about in here, and I see it on the lake when I get out there, is they want to fish right on the bank. Of course, that's the easiest place. You see the target, you can throw to it. My experience, and I can only speak from my experience on the lake, is that the fish will actually move up in the water column before they move in. They're going to move up and get that sunshine. And I think it's like us, we got to have the vitamin D. They've got to get the ultraviolet rays and everything, and it helps mature the eggs. And once they feel comfortable moving in, then they'll move on into your first staging areas, which would be your main lake points, some secondary points, and start to feed. About that time, around the rocks and the clay banks, and you'll see the crawfish will start popping out. They'll come out of hibernation, and nature tells them that's a high protein food that they can bulk back up on, because they have starved all winter. They eat during the winter time, but they don't eat as many days in the winter because their metabolism is so slow. When metabolism speeds up, they've got to keep fuel to the fire, and so they'll start feeding on your crawfish, and they'll start running your shad before they move on in.
So when we had those couple warm days, the water temperature kind of heats up rather quickly, and it gives them that signal it's time to head to the banks and feed. It's cooled down now, but we might see a couple more days like that maybe in the next week or two. Who knows what the weather might do. Do you think that pattern would repeat itself if that happens?
It could repeat itself. What it will do is, now the fish, if they're 15 foot deep and you got the surface temperature is rising, they don't know it's rising. Okay, so the water temperature needs to start rising down in the column, and then they'll start moving. But again, with the days getting longer, they already know it's time to move. They're just waiting for the temperatures to get right. And on this lake, my experience has been, if you're seeing 48, 49 degrees on a consistent basis, then that move is starting. So the magic number for me is 48s, and I usually start throwing a jerkbait because they will suspend up, and a jerkbait will actually, a suspending jerkbait will actually sit there long enough for them to react to it. One of the baits that we'll actually use is this little guy right here. This is the Pointer 78. You can use the Pointer 100s. Then you can also use the Stacy's. The Stacy's are a little deeper divers, so if your fish are a little bit deeper, it'll get down to them. But this little guy here will suspend in the water column and sit there and give the fish time to react to it. It's not going to be a savage hit. more than likely when you're moving a jerk bait, you pause it, you count to 10, and you go to move it, and there's a fish there.
10? Count to 10?
Oh, sometimes 30. Depends on how slow the bite is, but it's sometimes
That's kind of painful, isn't it?
it's like watching grass grow, But it pays off. I've caught I hooked the biggest fish I ever hooked on this lake in February on a jerk bait, and I was foolish enough not to reach down for the net. I tried to lip her and she come off. So that fish was in the 11 to 12 pound range. It still haunts me today. But it was on a jerk bait, and it was, again, I was just counting to 10, and then I went to move it, and there she was. So it I didn't even know the fish was there. So with their metabolisms being slow, they move slow, and so it takes a little time for them to come up to it and grab it. So, but the jerk bait is a very good one to get started with.
So do you switch the hooks out on that? Or
I do
kind of
not.
A small hook for
This
fish that size?
these hooks are very, very good that come on here. Some people will switch them out, but I have found that Lucky Craft knows what they're doing, and in this case, they're a pretty quality hook. So they're extremely sharp. They're real tacky. They'll go in your hand just as easy as they will their mouth. So I don't change this hook out.
Okay. See, you said a few weeks ago you heard a bunch of 7/8s being caught. There's a pretty decent number of those size fish in Falls Lake, isn't there?
Oh yeah. This lake here is one of the premier lakes in the country. It's been in the top 50 in the country for many, many years, ranked among the bass fishermen. It's a well-kept secret other than that. I mean, a lot of people outside of this area do not know that this little 12,000 acre lake is a mega bass producer. Now, we'd also have two other lakes here, Sharon, Harris, and Jordan, and they're also producing big bass. Sharon Harris has made the news in the last couple of years due to the heavy stringers that have come in. But Falls Lake is a more consistent lake. You can catch that size fish just about any time of the year, whether you're deep cranking or you're Carolina rigging or you're throwing a top water bait. This lake here is more consistent than the other two as far as producing big fish.
So that 10-pounder plus, he's out there swimming around somewhere.
Oh no, I can tell you exactly where it's at. I mean, it's in Horse Creek. I mean, that's the most popular creek on the lake. And there, last year we had in February, we had that warm up last year in February, and there were a number over 10 that were caught from Ledge Rock all the way down to the dam. So, there's not one magic spot that all the big fish congregate. They are scattered on this lake. And if you're new to the lake, it's not an easy nut to crack, but it is one of the neatest lakes because once you figure out a pattern, that pattern will work from one end of the lake to the other. Case in point was, I went out fishing one day and it was in July, and I couldn't get the deep fish to bite. I could see them, I couldn't get them to bite. So I just ran up the lake and I saw we had some new laydowns. Trees that fallen in the water still had leaves on them. So I picked the jig up and flipped in there and caught 3 out of the one tree. And I was able to run that pattern from the Highway 50 bridge all the way to the dam, and I caught at least 2 fish out of every tree I went to.
Wow.
Some were, a pound and a half, 2 pounds. Some were nice 4 and 5 pounders. So again, it's a great pattern lake, and you can truly catch a big fish here.
Now you have a couple other baits over there. Let's take a look at what you got there.
Now with the crawfish popping out, the crawfish will bury up in the clay, and as they sit there all winter, they're filtering that clay through their system, so it actually turns them red or an orange color. And so when they're popping out, one of the better colors to throw in any bait, soft plastics, hard baits, whatever, would be your oranges and your reds, and in this case it's a rattle trap, and that a lot of times the red rattle trap is really good this time of year, and it'll be good for to mid to late March, and then by that time your crawfish have filtered out all that clay, and then they turn their greens or their browns or their blacks or whatever the minerals in the water is going to dictate their shell color. Um, Another color that's really good on this lake pretty much year round is this is the Spro Fat John, but their color is called Spring Craw. You can get that in a lot of different bait brands, but this color is really good because our crawfish here are browns and blacks and greens or green pumpkins. Green pumpkin is a staple everywhere. So,
Right.
but if you're working a bait, then that you want to imitate a crawfish, you got to really pick the time of year you're doing that, and then determine what color it's going to be, because these crawfish will change colors as the year goes on. They molt and everything else. So, but early in the year, like it is now, these colors here are fantastic.
Up until what, the end of March, would you say?
I would say the reds up to end of March. This color here is all the way up into June, and then the fall. It's about September, all the way down to Christmas time.
So Spro, and what do you have here?
This is the Spro. This is the Fat John 60, and this is the Fat John 50. This is two different sizes.
Right, and why the different numbers, if you could explain that?
Well, the different size, they're just different sizes. This lake is loaded with crawfish, but not all the crawfish are big. Most of them are going to be the smaller size, and so a lot of guys like to throw the smaller crankbait. If the water's a little bit dirtier, the bigger crankbait will give a more of a sound signature coming through the water, and so they'll go to the bigger size. And then of course with this color here, you got a lot of the colors of a bluegill. Our bluegill spawn, happens in May, and it'll happen May, June, July, and sometimes in August. And so these bass will hang around those bluegill beds, and that's a free meal, easy meal, and they'll grab them. And this color is also good then. That's why I say this one's really good a lot of time during the year.
Now, when you're fishing this in, say, February now, in February or into March, is there a certain way that you're cranking that? A certain reel you're using?
You can use. I throw all my square bills on what I call your medium running crankbait reel. Be like a 6.2 to 6.4 or 6.8 reel. I don't do the 7s, and I don't do the 5s. I don't get the action with the 5, the ratios of those, and the 7s are too fast.
Right.
This time of year, what you want to do is just bump it along, and then actually do a lot of start and stop.
Okay.
Because again, the bass are not, even though the water's warming up, they're not torpedoing you. They're just grabbing a hold of it, and all of a sudden they're there. So you got to give them time to.
Okay.
And then later
So
on, as your bass move into,
we're in a good spot here.
Yeah, that's good.
we'll move into the spawn stage. Then your moving baits are actually not as good. When the fish are on the bed and there's a bait coming by real fast, the bass is not going to bother with it. It's leaving. It's not going to hang around. It's not going to harass me. Then you start slowing down with your soft plastics. You can slow roll a spinner bait. And again, your jerk bait can work depending on how shallow the fish are you're after. What I like to do is I like to use a soft plastic. And one of my favorite techniques is I call it a baby Carolina rig. Okay, Carolina rig is huge in this area, but when you're up shallow and trying to
Baby
target
Carolina rig. He's going to show us
yeah, I've
what
got
this is
one
all
rigged
about.
up here. All you're doing is you're sliding. I use a 3/16 ounce tungsten weight, and I slide it and peg it up about 6 to 12 inches above my bait. This is a baby brush hog, one of my favorite little guys here. It's kind of like a
Fish
combination.
catching machine, right?
Yes, it is. It's a combination between a lizard and a crawworm. So since this lake has both, this is a really, really good bait. And all you do, a lot of people will peg their sinker when they're Texas rigging, and they'll put the sinker stopper above the
Hold
the
on
weight.
a second. Hey, Dave, can you see that, or should we come closer to the camera?
Closer. It's not bad, but come on.
Okay.
Closer.
We'll just come on up. It's got a pretty wide angle lens on there, so
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, you can even hold it up closer to the lens if that works. Just let them know, Dave.
Yeah, you can bring it on up a little closer if you want.
Okay. So what people will do when they Texas rig, and they will.
You want to have this part towards the camera a little bit more.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay, I
that's
got you. Okay.
kind of like you're talking to our
To
Facebook
anybody.
viewers out
Okay.
there and our web viewers.
They'll put this sinker stopper, which is right here, just a little thing you put on the line, and they'll have it above the hook, above the weight to hold it down on the hook. So whenever you're pitching and flipping, you don't get the separation and get hang up. Well, what I do is I put it between the bait and the sinker, and I just slide it up, and now I've got a Carolina rig.
Look at that.
Okay, very
That saves a
simple.
lot of time from tying.
No knots. That's right. You got one knot to tie on the hook, and that's it. And it's a very
That's a good
simple
trick.
deal. You can still get in tight to cover with it. You don't hang up. And for whatever reason, when you find a fish on the bed, they can't leave it alone. I catch a lot of my fish all the way up till mid-June doing this technique right here. This is, if you ever see me on the water this time, all the way up till about 4th of July, you'll see this rig on my boat ready to go, because I catch a lot of fish on it. And you can use,
And what size weight did you say that
this is
was?
a 3/16 ounce tungsten right here. Okay, that's my preferred. I use a 6'10" Falcon rod with it's what they call a finesse jig rod. So it throws it really well. Some people want a heavier rod, some people want a lighter rod. You can adjust your weight accordingly. But this is just what I actually use myself, and that's just a 2/0 hook. And then you can use any color baby brush hog that you want, and even dye the tails or whatever you want to do there. But this is a go-to for me on this lake.
Now with bedded fish on Falls Lake, I guess that really starts with the warming trend, but how long will it go on for?
We get different stages on this lake for about from March all the way up into, we've actually found spawning fish in June. And it really depends on how much rainfall we get. Like right now we're getting a lot of rain, a lot of cold rain. The upper end of the lake will stay muddy and cold longer. So while you'll find fish that'll move up to start feeding, they may not go on beds until it clears up a little bit or water warms up a little bit. Down here at the dam it's the same way. We'll get some early, and usually our bigger fish will go on first. That's when we usually start hearing about it. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to catch an 8-9 pounder in June on the bed. It's just that your big numbers are usually March and April. Okay. And this water is not clear enough, even on its clear days, to actually go and sight fish. Unless you got really good eyes, and I don't. So they'll actually, they'll spawn a little bit deeper because it's safer for them. You can't see them, predators can't see them. So what I do is I target dark spots. That could be a rock, it could be a stump, it could be something, and you just pitch around all your dark spots, and you can usually find there'll be a bed on one side of that dark spot somewhere. And that works here, that works on any lake I've ever done it on. And so I don't have to have as good eyesight so I can see the fish. I just pitch up there. Now another way you can, what we call bird dogging, you can take a topwater bait such as a pop R, and just twitch it along. And if a bass is on the bed, then she'll roll at it, try to get it to leave. Okay. Well, she just showed herself.
Right.
Okay. You see the white belly when she rolls at it.
Uh-huh.
Then you just turn right around with your baby brush hog and pitch it right in that same spot, and you'll catch her.
You got it.
Yeah, okay. Another technique would be just a floating worm. Your trick worms without a weight. You just throw it out there and let it settle down slow. And a lot of times you'll see them kind of just push it away. Eventually they get mad enough they'll eat it.
Yeah.
But I like the pop-R technique where you just twitch it along a little bit and you'll see one roll at it. And then she just turn right around and pitch that baby in there and it'll work.
It's always a good feeling when you see one rolling and you're able to throw something back in there.
Yeah,
And get them to bite.
yeah. She's already aggravated, so the next thing that comes in, you know, heaven help, if it's a bluegill or whatever that swims in the area, it's gone. So and so you try to get her while she's fired up.
Right.
And so it's a really, really good technique that we use.
That's good.
One of the other things is while these fish are moving up in the water column, they'll eventually move into your laydowns or whatever, but they may be over deep water. Okay. One of the mistakes I see a lot of people do is they'll take a jig and they'll drop it over a limb and then they'll just feed it line that goes to the bottom. Well, that fish is not 15 foot deep. It's just underneath that limb. Another technique you can use is take that jig or your shaky head or whatever you're using and swim it from limb to limb. Okay, because then you've got it in their face,
Right.
and they'll take it. You can do, again, the baby brush hog, and just put it on a shaky head. Okay, and just swim it from limb to limb to limb. This will actually work pretty much all your warm months, from your early spawners all the way up into the summertime, because as the summer gets on, then your oxygen level deeper will start decreasing, okay, because you'll get the thermocline, and those fish will suspend up in those laydowns, in those, you know, in vertical cover or a laydown, and I just swim it through, and I get a lot more bites doing that.
So for those of you that maybe haven't done that and you're wondering how you keep it from hanging up in there, if you could show them how you have your hook set in there so that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah. This little shaky head here, it comes out of the package just like this. You've got a screw, and you've got your hook, and you take your soft plastic, whatever you want to use. You can use a lizard. A lot of people like a trick worm in this area. I use a baby brush hog a lot. Some people also use a crawl worm, such as a Zoom speed crawl. You just take it and stick it on the stick pin and just twist, and it'll just screw itself right down to the head. And then you just kind of bury it to where it's as straight as possible, because the straighter the better, it won't twist your line. And you just do just like that, and you're ready to go.
And the hook's just buried right inside.
The hook's just buried just inside,
It won't hang up.
and you won't hang up near as much. These are trocar hooks in this shaky head, and they do come through the plastic real easy. So I'm not going to guarantee you won't get hung up, but it's a lot better.
But you do want to make contact with the branches.
Yes, you do. You want to bounce it from limb to limb to limb, and just let it sink down just below it, and you just bring it over and let it sit. And just bring it over, and believe it or not, you'll get a lot more bites doing that.
That's good information.
So that's a technique that I use here. I love to use it on Lake Fork out in Texas.
Yeah.
We do a lot of our testing out there with lures, and we've learned it even works out there. So, but Falls Lake is
There's a
excellent
lot
place.
of bushes out there, right?
A lot of standing timber, yes.
Standing timber.
Yes, and these fish will just sit up in that cover, and they don't have eyelids, so they want to get up into the warm water this time of year, but they also don't want the sun in their eyes, because if the sun's in their eyes, they can't see the prey coming, so they will actually hide their eyes underneath in the shade, and they're still getting warm, and they can see around them. And so the closer they get to that limb, the better that shade's going to be for their eyes. And so this is a excellent way of doing that.
Good information. Some of the we got some Zoom plastics behind us here. You were talking about a trick worm on top of the water earlier. What would be a good color in Falls Lake in the early springtime?
Early springtime, this time of year, we're going to have your methylates.
Go ahead and pull it off the shelf.
Okay. You'll have your methylate colors, which is just one of the brightest colors you'll ever see.
And why is that good in Falls Lake?
Well, you got dirty water, and as it falls in the water, the actual color will actually change to almost looking natural. As
the amount of light it's getting.
the amount of light that's getting in there, you don't get as much penetration and everything, and it'll actually look more like a natural worm. And then as the water starts clearing up, then we'll go to the tomato. Okay, which is, again, you get that same effect, it's just a different, darker color. But these two are really, really good this time of year, and they're good all the way up, and early spring, late spring. So these are really, really good colors. And as the summer goes along, then our colors turn more into as the water clears up and everything, it turns more into the purples and greens. That's why green pumpkin, your plums, your even black and blue, believe it or not, work really, really well. But these bright colors are not necessary because the water is a little bit clearer.
Right.
So, but these are the two staples that we sell a lot of in this shop this time of year.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. Let's see. Do we have anything else over there to talk about? Or is
Yeah,
that
we
pretty
got
much?
one of the trends around here, and we're seeing that a lot more in this shop, is people wanting to fish with braid, especially on spinning reels. Braid is a great line. It doesn't have the memory that monofilament or fluorocarbon has. The only problem is that sometimes it messes up the action of the bait that you're using. So people they want to tie either a fluorocarbon leader or a monofilament leader to the braid, so the bait will still have its action, but they've still got the sensitivity and the strength of braid. So one of the questions I get a lot is, what knot should I tie? Well,
First of all, we're using baler twine.
we're using baler twine. If you can see this
That's
online.
not some secret line, but we're using that so you can see it.
No, this is really for flipping, right?
Good and strong.
But the knot I like to use, and there's a bunch of them out there. The one I like to use is very simple. It's called an Albright knot. You can look it up online, and there's a lot of different websites that'll show you how to tie it. But what I like about it is it's very simple, and it creates a small knot that'll actually go through your guides. But the simple way of doing this is just take your leader and just fold it over, just like this right here. Take your braid and run it through that loop. Bring out enough tag line there. And then you'll just take it and wrap it 6 times away from that loop. 4. This rope is stiff.
Yeah.
5. And
6 times is the magic number.
6 seems to be a magic number. Now, we're not done. You take it and you go 6 times back towards this loop.
Oh my.
Okay.
It's going to be a strong knot.
It's going to be a strong knot. 1, 2, 3.
And what's this knot called again?
Albright knot. 6. Okay. Make sure I got all my ducks in a row here. And then, now you get done with that, you just put it back through the loop like you're going to try to take it out. You grab you got 2 tags and 2 lines, and you just take it and just pull as hard as you can, and then you just pull your main lines and it slides down, and it creates a knot that isn't much bigger than the diameter of your line. I've actually got one tied here somewhere. Anyway, I thought I had one tied up already with braid, and it showed you how small the knot is. But this here, you see the diameter of the rope here The knot is not much bigger than that, so it'll actually go through your guides, and it'll even go through micro guides. The trick here is on your leader side, you want to clip this tag as tight as possible. That way it doesn't hang on the guide as it's going out. And some people will even put a dab of super glue on there just to keep it from slipping, but I've never had this slip. And this knot is here for good. Now you want to wrap the braid around the leader line, because the braid is what's doing all the gripping. If you wrap the leader around the braid, it's going to slip right out. So the braid is actually the one that's gripping all this. So, but this is a very, very good knot, easy to tie, and you can have it done really, really quick. And you don't need a swivel or snaps or anything like that. It's just no new hardware, just a knot.
Works much better with just a knot and not having the swivels.
Right.
There.
Yeah. I mean,
You get
you
a
know.
totally different action, and it doesn't hang up in your guides.
Right. And the old saying, less is more. In this case, the less hardware you have in there, the better action you're going to have.
Not only that, I've had some issues with saltwater fishing. If you have that swivel in there, your fish will actually go to the swivel instead of the hook.
Well, that would be a problem unless you put a hook on the swivel, I guess. But yeah,
But it's just a neater presentation.
it's a neater presentation, and like I said, it's a very small knot, and it will go through your guide, so you can have a 10 or 15 foot leader line and still reel it up in your rod and be able to cast it with no problem at all.
That's a must for braided line.
Yes, yes, it is. And like I said, there's other knots out there, but this one here is easy for me to tie, and it's been very strong, and I've never had it to fail on me.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's all good, Jerry. I mean, there's some good information about the lake. Outhouse Tackle, Jerry Lucas here in North Raleigh off of Six Forks. If you're in the area, stop in and get some baits and find out what's going on the lake, on Falls Lake. You're not only buying baits here, but you're getting some information too. Or if you're first time fishing, Jerry knows all the information you need to know to get started with fishing. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Jerry. Yes, sir. Hope that works. I needed a table right here in front of me. Keep walking away and getting
No,
stuff.
that was a good job.
Yeah, that was real good.
Really